Hi, Nancy. Welcome to Sarah's Tent. How are you tonight?
Hi, Sandy. I'm fine. How are you?
I'm good. Just want to welcome everyone who will be listening to this, to welcome you to Sarah's Tent, where everyone is welcome, following in the hospitality of our matriarch, Sarah. And we have our candle in the tent, and we're ready to talk about some Torah. You ready?
I am.
Okay, just briefly where we are in the middle of the Noah story. The flood has begun and they are in the ark. So Nancy's going to read a few verses. We'll stop and chat a little bit and then read a few more verses. So you ready, Nancy?
Yes. So I'm going to be reading in Genesis 7, verse 17 through the end of the chapter.
Okay.
When the flood was 40 days on the earth, the waters increased and raised the ark so that it was lifted above the earth. The waters strengthened and increased greatly upon the earth, and the ark moved about upon the surface of the waters. The waters strengthened exceedingly much upon the earth, covered all of the mountains which are high that are under the entire heavens. 15 cubits upward did the waters strengthen, and covered were the mountains. Perished had all flesh that moves upon the earth, among the birds, among the animals, among the beasts, and among the crawling things that crawl upon the earth, and all mankind. Everything that there was the breath of the spirit of life in its nostrils, of everything that was on dry land, died. And he blotted all existence that was on the face of the ground, from man to animal, to creeping thing, and to bird of the heavens. They were blotted out from the earth. Left surviving was only Noah and those with him in the ark. And the waters strengthened on the earth 150 days.
Hey, thank you, Nancy. Paints a rather bleak picture, doesn't it, of what the earth is like right now. That the earth was covered with water until even the mountains could not be seen. That's I've been through one major flood since I've been in Houston, and that was devastating. So I cannot even begin to think about a flood that would cover even the mountains, or even the. I just can't imagine that.
Yeah, and it says all of, I thought it was an interesting phrase here. It said, the mountains which were high, that were under the entire heavens. So it wasn't just in one local spot, it was everything under the heavens. All of those mountains were covered.
Yes. I have read in history books and other writings that in almost every civilization that has been recorded, they tell of a devastating flood that happened. So it wasn't just this one area; it was evidence around the world has been uncovered that, like they find fossils in up around Montana that were ocean creatures. So how did they get up there? So there's physical evidence around today that this incredible flood covered the entire world.
And it was pretty devastating. The Torah here lists everything that was killed or died in the flood. Very detailed, it looks to me like. It's all flesh that moved upon the earth, all the birds, all the beasts, all the crawly things, everything that had the breath, the spirit of life in its nostrils, everything. I mean, and mankind and all of mankind.
And
So,
mankind, yeah.
so it was pretty total.
And this phrase, I just noticed this phrase when you were reading it earlier in verse 22. Everything that there was the breath of the Spirit of life in its nostrils. Where did God in creation breathe the breath of life? Into the nostrils. He breathed into the nostrils the breath of life. So we keep seeing tiebacks to the original creation. They're kind of little hidden things that we can just skip over very easily if we're not paying attention. That the breath of nostrils the breath of life in the nostrils of every living thing. But I read in commentary, and this I'm quoting Mizrahi, only the fish were spared because they had not participated in man's sins like everything else that walked on the face of the earth. Even the creepy crawlies evidently had perverted their way. But the fish were spared because they had not participated in that. Thought that
Well, that
that was
that would
interesting.
be also fit with the breath of life in their nostrils. I don't I don't think of fish as breathing air in their nostrils.
Right,
So maybe
right.
that also fits with
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, they breathe through their gills, right?
Gills.
Gills.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I hadn't thought of it like that, but yes. So the fish were spared. And I've read in other places because they were underwater, they did not even see the perversion that was going on the earth. They were totally isolated from all of that, and they were spared. And only those in the ark survived. Um, just so devastating. The word, I think the phrases, the words that are used in verse 23, he blotted out. And there was another phrase, where was it? Don't see it right now. Everything perished. It was blotted out. All existence was blotted out. That word is used a couple of times. And left surviving was only Noah and those with him in the ark. I can't,
Yeah, that's pretty complete.
complete devastation. I just wonder, would like to have some recounting in the Torah of what it was like for Noah and his family and the animals in the ark. What was it like day to day? Did they have any idea what was going on outside the ark? But there just seems to be a blank area. There's nothing that I have come across that tells us what was going on day to day. What were they feeling? And there had to be some um, sadness, maybe, that all this devastation was happening out there.
But I do think it's interesting that in the construction of the ark, there was only like one window
Right,
and it was closed because later Noah opened the window. So they weren't seeing all
right,
that was going on. They
right.
were closed in this box and maybe they could hear, maybe they knew what was going on, but they didn't see it
Didn't
because
see
there
it.
was no windows to look out.
And maybe that's an example of the mercy of Hashem, that they didn't see all that was going on. It makes me think of later on Lot's wife, that she looked back and saw the devastation that was happening. So maybe that was part of God's plan, that he didn't want Noah and his family to see what was happening. I would think it would be so horrific. Uh, just the kindness and mercy of God taking care
Right.
of them. Yeah. The entire, all the things that were under the entire heavens, 15 cubits upward did the water strengthen, and covered were the mountains. That's just beyond I can't even visualize what that would be like.
Yeah, how deep the water was.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just incredible. So, creeping things, birds of the heavens were blotted out. Everything. Is there anything else in those verses that we need to focus on before we move on to the next group?
No, I think that's covers it pretty much.
But one thing, and I thought about this before, it, back in verse, let's see, 17, when the flood was 40 days on the earth, and the waters increased and raised the ark so that it was lifted above the earth, the waters strengthened and increased greatly upon the earth, and the ark moved about upon the surface of the waters. From what I've read, the waters were not just rising, but it was turmoil. There was upheaval. So I'm wondering, did the ark just float, or was it tossed around? It just says that it moved about upon the surface of the waters. And I've read one commentary that said the ark was not designed to sail, like on a cruise, like sail around, but just to float. So did it just, wherever he built it, did it just float up? And then as the waters are moving, it just moved around. And then when the waters, it kind of settled back where it started? Or did it land in a different place from where it started out?
Oh, I think it landed in a different place. Yeah.
Okay.
That's just the way that I envisioned it, is that the waters were moving around, um, and the ark traveled
Okay.
because the word that's used for moved about is the same word for like travel, to go. So I do believe that it's lech. You see that?
It's what? Say that again.
Lech, like lech lecha,
Oh, okay.
telech.
Okay.
Um, so yeah, that gives me the sense that it did travel.
And I'm just reading here in our commentary in our Humash. I had not noticed this before. It said, first the waters lifted the ark, then they became increasingly violent and tossed it aimlessly about. So that does sound like it wasn't like Noah is not like a captain of the ship guiding it somewhere. It's being tossed about wherever these waters are sending it. So I'm wondering if there's a lot of um, turmoil inside the ark while it's being tossed about. That would be frightening, I would think.
Yeah, if the animals were being jostled around,
Yeah,
kind of like
yeah,
trying to be on a cruise ship in a storm.
yes. I was on a cruise ship one time and it wasn't a bad storm, but it was enough that you kind of had to hold on to things as you were trying to walk around, and you could
Yeah,
hear the waves hitting the side of the ship, and even that was a little unnerving. And we didn't have all these animals on board with us either.
but it wasn't that bad.
And it wasn't that bad, no. So there's just so many details that when we start really thinking about it, that I wish we had more information about what was going on. And I just wonder, because we know Noah and Abraham and some of these other people, their lives overlapped. And just have to wonder, did Shem, Ham, and Japheth, did they tell uh, other people that came along, later, that they overlapped with, what it was like in there? And if they did, why isn't it written down? I want to know.
Inquiring minds want to know.
That's right. What was going on? So I guess if we were really supposed to know, it would be there. So
Right. That's my only consolation, is that if it was important to know, Hashem would have put it in the book.
exactly. But still, my curiosity is not satisfied.
But I also did want to make a note that we are starting to count days. So for 40 days, the flood was going on, and then 150 days, the turmoil, the water was increasing and strengthening and being churned about for 150 days. So we're starting to get some detail like that.
Yes. Yes. And and what do you think it's that Hashem has put so much emphasis on those details? Why does it matter to us that it was 150 days that this happened and it was 40 days that this happened? And why, there's got to be a reason why Hashem wanted it in there.
Right, exactly. Because, like, we want to know what was going on inside the ark. Just out of curiosity, we want to know, but that's not in here.
Mm-hmm.
So, what is put in here has to be important for a reason.
Right.
I don't know that reason yet.
No, me either. Either. Like you said, there's got to be a purpose for it being in there. So, do we want to move on now to chapter 8?
Yeah, I think we can. I'm just
Okay.
going to read the first few verses of chapter 8.
Okay.
All right. God remembered Noah and all the beasts and all the animals that were with him in the ark. And God caused to pass a spirit over the earth, and the waters subsided. And closed were the fountains of the deep and the windows of the heavens. And restrained was the rain from the heavens. And the waters then receded upon the earth, continuously receding, and the waters diminished at the end of 150 days. And the ark came to rest in the 7th month on the 17th day of the month, the 17th day of the month, upon the mountains of Ararat.
Okay. So we're coming to the end of it now. Um, Again, we've got details in days and dates. Um, Again, 150 days. There's got to be some significance on that. We know 40 days is an important number in throughout the Torah. So many important things are connected with 40 days. Um, so again, he at the beginning he told us the month and the day and all of that when it began, and now he's telling us the month and the day when it's coming to an end. So there has to be something important for us to learn there.
I also thought it was interesting that if you kind of look at what's going on, it seems to mirror the creation story. I know that we mentioned this before,
Mm-hmm.
but you see here, there's the Spirit of God. God caused a spirit to, to pass over the earth, and that's the same word that's in the creation story.
Mm-hmm.
And also, you've got the waters above and the waters below. And they've been raining and gushing all this time. And so now Hashem has put an end to that, has closed them up. Lots of mirror images or similarities with the creation story.
Yes, I noticed that too. And in addition to what you were just saying, in verse 2, it says the waters are restrained. And ties that back to creation again. When he separates the dry land, the waters from the dry land, he tells the waters, you can come this far and no farther. So they were restrained then. They're being restrained now. It's like they have to go back to their original boundaries where they were. So it is like he's repeating creation. He did creation, the flood came, it's like he undid creation, and now we're seeing it play out again.
Yes, like this is a new creation or recreation,
Right, right.
recreation.
Yes. And like you said, the spirit was moving over the earth, reminds us of the beginning again. But let's go back to verse 1 in chapter 8. And there's a phrase there that interests me. God remembered Noah and all the beasts and all the animals that were with him in the ark. Did God forget? Did he think, oh, I left some people in a boat. Maybe I need to go check on them. I forgot about them. I got busy over here with other things and I forgot. You think that happened?
I don't think so, but what does
I
that mean?
I don't think that happened either. It is not possible for God to forget. So, question, what does it mean when it says God remembered? It's impossible for God to forget. And I did some research on this afternoon, and it seems like when God remembers something, I'm put remembers, if you could see me, I'm doing air quotes. When God remembers, some action follows. Got some examples of that. In case you wanted some examples of that, I have some. God remembers. I found three instances, and there probably are more, but I found three in the Torah. God remembered Abraham and intervened to save Lot from Sodom and Gomorrah. Had he forgotten Abraham? No, but he remembered Abraham, and something happened after that. Next one that I found, God remembered Rachel. And then she conceived a child. That had been, she had been praying for a child and praying for a child, and God remembered her, and something happened after that. And then the last one I want to bring up tonight is God remembered his covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And what happened when he remembered that covenant? He brought the Israelites out of slavery. So it seems like when God remembers, whatever that means, whatever how God remembers, because it's not like forgetting and remembering, whatever that means, something incredible usually happens after we see that phrase.
Very nice. Thank you for doing all of that research. Those examples help to clarify that.
Yeah.
And it's not just a one-off thing that he remembers here, but it's mentioned several times.
Yes, several times. And there actually, as I was researching it, there are one that I didn't jot down. It's in where I can't remember now where the story of Hannah is, where she's praying for a child, and it's even used there. He remembered Hannah, and Samuel was born. So it's not just like you said, a one-off. It's consistent throughout, not just the Torah, but the entire Tanakh. When he remembers, he does something. Something incredible happens after that. So, what else, Nancy, do we see in these few verses? We're kind of shorter verses tonight, I think, um, that we're covering. So, did you have something else?
Well, other than the mirroring of the creation story and the specifics about the times, and then your topic of remembering, I think that covers those four verses. I mean, it's only four verses, and we got a lot out of those four little verses.
Exactly. Well, there's one other thing I wanted to bring up before we finish. We may be finishing a little early tonight. So, um, 40 days. We've talked about the 40 days before. And let me look again in I think it's verse 4. Let me find that quickly. Um, let's see, the 17th day.
Verse 6, I haven't read it. When the
Well,
ark.
okay, I put it for verse 4. The ark rested on the mountain 40 days. Did I write that down wrong? Seventh month. Yeah, okay, well, we won't spend any more time trying to find that. I guess I wrote the reference down wrong. Because I was thinking the ark rested on the mountain 40. Oh, well, we won't go into it because I can't find it now. Um, oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Verse 6. There it is. Yeah. We haven't read it, but I want to do just maybe a little teaser for
Okay.
next week. It says in verse 6, and it came to pass at the end of 40 days. And that's right after it says it rested on Mount Ararat. And it came to pass at the end of 40 days that Noah opened the window. The point I got from that was the ark rested on the mountain. It sounds like 40 days. 40 days on top of a mountain or on a mountain.
Sounds
Who else do
familiar.
we know? Who else do we know that was on a mountain for 40 days? Moses.
Right.
So it's just, I saw that maybe a connection there, maybe not, but I thought it was interesting. Just so many things are interlinked in the Torah if we look for
And
these.
maybe that's the purpose of the details, is to
Oh,
tie things together
okay, good,
so that we can see similarities between stories because the details are the same.
good. Oh, yeah, I like that. So anyway, that will be our little teaser. What happened after those 40 days? And he opens the window.
Ooh,
Oh, think he's a little nervous about opening that window and looking out.
I would be.
I remember when I was a child living in North Texas, we were in Tornado Alley and we would get severe thunderstorms. And everybody in where I grew up is small rural community. We had storm cellars. And when the storms were getting very bad, we would go down to the storm cellar. And it was kind of a dugout thing in the ground and had dirt over it. I hated going in there because I was just sure there were snakes everywhere. But when the storm was over, it was kind of trepidation opening that door. What devastation. Did the roof blow off the house? Did the trees fall over? It was kind of a little nervous to open that door to see what was left after the storm. So I'm wondering if maybe there's some of that with Noah, a little, maybe open it just a little bit and peeking out and seeing to see what has happened. So
Yeah, because he doesn't get out. He just looks.
oh, just looks exactly. So
So next week.
next week we'll see what did he see when he opened the window. Oh, okay, Nancy. I guess that is all for tonight. So
Well, so my takeaway is that, I'd like to focus on the kindness that we mentioned earlier, that Hashem shielded Noah and the ones that were in the ark from all of this destruction that was going on around him, that he showed kindness towards them in that. What's
yes.
your takeaway?
Well, my takeaway is going back to God remembered. That just seemed to really catch my attention this time. And my takeaway on it is that he is faithful to keep his promises. When he says he's going to do something, he doesn't forget it. He keeps his promises and his covenants, and he will not forget. Oh,
That's wonderful.
okay. Well, thank you for an interesting discussion tonight, and we hope that those who listen to it later will be benefited from it. And we appreciate all who listen to our podcast and join us next week in
In
Sarah's
Sarah's
tent.
tent. Good night.
Good night.